Hey, thanks for tuning into the Zelos Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This show is all about the pros behind the pros in professional sports. And this week, Kyle Porter is my guest. He is the Director of Performance for the Colorado Rapids. That's right, Major League Soccer. But before we get underway, remember, you can go to my website, rockysnyder.com, for continuing education. If you're a physical therapist, athletic trainer, strength coach, personal trainer, heck, even a chiropractor in California, you can get CEUs by taking online courses or seeing me in in-person workshops. I've got some coming up pretty soon. You can go to my website for more information on that, plus podcast archives and blogs and a whole bunch more. Before we get underway, let's listen to our sponsors and then we'll get into the conversation. This episode of the Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere, with just an iPad or an iPhone, and no wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ's markerless motion capture in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, analyzing posture and gait mechanics, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit them at kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. You know, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have Metabolic Elite be one of the sponsors of the Zelos Podcast. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. I've seen a lot of supplements and performance enhancement things over the years, but they pair clinical experience with innovation. Like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, it's trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. So learn more at metabolicelite.co. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, Z-E-L-O-S. And before we get underway, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Rocky_Snyder, S-N-Y-D-E-R. Click subscribe, give us some comments, tell a few friends, enjoy the show. Well, Kyle, thanks, first of all, for coming on the Zealous Podcast. I appreciate, even though it's off season, you got a lot of things on your plate. So to just put a little time aside for this, I really am grateful for. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was cool to just read about all the different people that you've had the opportunity to interview and to be a part of. It's a really cool thing. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been honestly, between you and me and who's ever listening, it's been a fun adventure where one person opens the door to somewhere else, and the next thing you know, we've got all of these amazing professionals to
Yeah.
just talk shop to. So, and you're no
Just takes one,
exception.
man. Just
That's
takes
it.
one.
It really does. And well, the other thing that I love about people in your position is they have a tendency to want to give back because they were
Yeah.
provided an opportunity, so they just kind of pay it forward. And
100%.
yeah, so
Yeah.
so give us the lowdown on Kyle Porter and his career path, if you don't mind, in a couple of minutes. Like you,
Yeah.
New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, you're all around the Southwest. So how did that happen?
Yeah. It's hard to believe it's been as long as it has, but it's gone pretty quick. I feel like I've had probably four different lives and probably more, but grew up in New Mexico. Las Cruces, New Mexico is where I was born. So just always very much so a Hispanic presence. Soccer was always a part of my life. My whole family played soccer. My brother-in-law and my brother both played in college. That's how my brother-in-law became my brother-in-law, as they played together. So soccer is definitely a big family sport. Moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico when I was about 13, 14. And that's actually where uh, I met Chris Cartledge, who's our technical director. He was my coach for 2 years. So I've known him for about 22 years now. I think I was about 14 when we met. And So that just shows like how much relationships matter in this business because it's 22 years later and he's still one of my mentors, heroes, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. But it's when I moved there, it was a little bit of culture shock just because Las Cruces is a pretty impoverished area. There's not a whole lot going on in terms of opportunity. So usually if you want to do something, you're going to leave, and it's not too different from Albuquerque. So I always kind of use soccer as my vehicle to go get a better opportunity somewhere else. And I was gonna play at University of New Mexico. That was the plan, but it just didn't happen. I could have walked on, but just didn't really want to stay in New Mexico. I just needed a different opportunity, and so Trinity University came up. Just I was kind of late to the game of just being lazy in the recruiting process, not doing what I needed to do to get the attention I needed to get to go actually play somewhere. So called the coach, kind of told my background, and then I was on a visit the next week, and then I committed there and had to actually retake my ACT several times to get a score good enough to get in. But that was one of the best experiences I've ever had, and just learning how to learn, being challenged in a much different way, very difficult university. So I feel like I grew a lot there, not just in academics, but also on the soccer field. We had a pretty good team, made it to three Sweet 16s and Elite Eight. They actually were in the championship yesterday and lost 2-1. So it was the first
Wow.
time they'd been back in like 18 years. That was heartbreaking. Last 4 seconds, they conceded to tie, and then they lost 3 minutes
Oh,
into overtime. So it was pretty brutal. But I mean, I've been there. I scored an own goal on us when I was in the Elite Eight as a freshman, and we went home as well. So it was pretty rough. uh,
man.
but after college, got a degree in finance and marketing. So kind of a weird path from there. Worked in finance for 4 years after college in the agricultural industry. So servicing large dairy complexes, doing credit analytics and loan approvals for anyone that was over $5 million for like very large farming, and also crop deals, tractor deals, that kind of stuff. I kind of come
Well,
from a
this is a
rancher.
first. This is definitely a
Yeah,
first. I wasn't expecting that. So
yeah,
what
for sure.
happened? What you just one day you went into the office and
Yeah, I mean,
said,
it was a family trade. Like my dad did that. He was the CEO of Farm Credit in New Mexico. He's very much a loyal and pragmatic guy. He started as an intern, eventually became the CEO over the course of his career. Was at the same company for 35 years.
"Wow,
So it was a little bit of a, well, I know it's going to be a good life if I do this because he kind of paved the way, and I was pretty good at it too. Like I love numbers, was pretty moving up pretty quickly, just on that path, but I was just bored. Like I just couldn't do it. And it just wasn't for me. Just didn't have the passion for it. And I kind of just got to the point where I was like, if I wake up in 40 years and this is all I've done, I just don't, it's going to be a regret. So I always wanted to work in performance and soccer. And while I was working in finance, I also was coaching at the same time. After I was done at Trinity, moved to Phoenix for this job as a credit analyst. Actually working in special assets first, which was bleak, telling people they're going to lose their farms, but or trying to help them through it, obviously. But got a job working like a summer camp just randomly uh, with a club called Awatuki Foothills Soccer Club in Phoenix, Arizona, and just really enjoyed it. It was the first time I'd been back in soccer, and it took about 6 months till I was right back in it. So they gave me a U6 girls team. That was my first experience with coaching, but then continued to. I saw an opportunity for them to start a performance program there. So I offered to get certified. They gave me one team to start, and that team just did really well. Like they won the state championship that year. They won four after that, five actually. I think every girl got a Division I scholarship. So that was I kind of lucked out in getting that team first, but I just had a real passion for it and continued to build that side of things. And the next year I was coaching two teams and running that program, and the next year I was coaching three teams and running that program, and just got to the point where I was at the bank from about 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., drive home, go to the field, train from about 4 to 9 p.m., coach all weekend. And it was just like, I can't keep doing this. So I chose the more fun route and got into coaching full time. And then,
wow."
yeah,
So okay. On a personal side,
Yeah.
I'm curious, uh, how was that received by your dad?
Oh, he was pissed. Yeah. They were not very happy about that, and they didn't think I was going to be able to have a career in it because at that point there really wasn't a whole lot of opportunity. Like there wasn't anywhere near the opportunities there are now in the league. I mean, every department, even when I got to the Rapids, I was one of four employees. Now we have 11, so it's just exploded in that time.
Wow.
Um, but I just loved performance. I love soccer, and it's just what I wanted to do. So I jumped in his head first and bought into a gym. It was a bad deal. Lost my life savings. Gym doors were closed within like 7 months,
Oh.
and it was not a great start in the career. But
What happened? If you why? What was it?
um, it was just not understanding what I was getting myself into and being way too optimistic uh, and confident in what I could do without really having any education in the field, just athletic experience.
Got it.
Yeah, so
Wow.
ignorance and being naive, what I was probably what I would say.
And yet you still followed through with your passion.
Yep.
You found a way to get through these major hurdles between how the family received this idea and then Jim just collapsing in front of you
Yeah.
and losing your life savings, as you say. I mean,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah, it was
these are,
pretty, it was an intense time, but at the same
but what
time,
amazing experience to build from at the
it
same
was
time.
it was a PhD in business of not
Oh my
knowing what
gosh.
not to do ever again. So it was that's definitely a learning experience. I mean, you had to go through the liquidation process, all of the equipment, move out of the gym, clean up that mess for probably another 2 years.
Oh,
Continued to coach though, and really invested in my education. Went back and got my master's while I was coaching full time. I kind of took a book of business from that, so I built that over time as well. And did the Exos Performance Specialist mentorship program, did their certification, got my CSCS, and then kind of just got obsessed, got into a master's program for kinesiology, did that for 2 years, got a teaching or yoga teaching certification. Yeah, but just loved it and was obsessed with it. So just kept working and kind of got myself out of the problem. Um, Ended up selling my business to a place called Center for Athletic Performance and Physical Therapy, which is now Ortho Arizona. Became their director, and that was right before COVID. So that was about 9 months, and then COVID just kind of destroyed it. So it was not a great time to be in the gym business, as you well
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So I got back into team sports, went to Grand Canyon University with our men's team in 2020. Got to work with Zelos Hyndman, who was really good to get that experience working with a former MLS coach and having a new challenge, a new standard of how to operate. And it was just awesome. First experience with GPS and really got into the sports science side of stuff. He retired, worked with Leonard Griffin the year after that. Team did really well. I was working with men's soccer, men's and women's tennis, and the dance team. And men's soccer won two conference championships. And we made it to in NCAA tournaments. Men's tennis and and women's tennis both won one. Went to one tournament, and the dance team won a national championship. So it was a good 2 years, and then just needed a
Yeah.
new challenge. I was in Phoenix for probably 10 years, and just didn't really. I don't know. I just stagnated, and I just wasn't feeling like I was being challenged much anymore, and wanted a new experience. So I started to apply to MLS clubs. Made it to the final round with Nashville. Had interviews with DC United and Colorado Rapids, but I chose the Rapids mostly because they're close to my where I live in Albuquerque. I'm really family oriented, but also just having that relationship with carts was a big driving force in making that decision. And I knew that at the very least, coming here, I would have one person that I'd trust unequivocally, and I guess the rest is history.
Dude, that is so awesome. I love that story. It was nothing at all like I was expecting. So thank you for surprising me with that.
For
From
sure.
th so, gosh, there's so much to kind of ask you here. First of all, how from a coaching and performance perspective, how do you take your background in finance? Are there some things? Is it a structural component? Is the way of looking linearly? Is it your tracking? And like, do you utilize it? You must utilize it to some degree. Like,
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
do those become your strengths?
I think there's a couple different ways that it impacts things. One, I'm just a very analytical person, so I'm always looking at things in terms of probability or risk aversion, while also trying to get the most out of someone, but always prioritizing performance, like in what it actually matters and what they're paid to be here, not working out, but performing on the pitch and being available. So in that way, I think it comes a little bit natural, but in terms of just how we look at things here and how I look at things as a whole in terms of loading progression, periodization, just having a rhythm, I think is how I see it most is if you look at it from a trend perspective over time, you can't just stay up here. You've got to come back down, obviously, and having the right moments to push, prioritizing the right situations. What stage of development is the player in? Is it a young player who needs additional stimulus, or is it a veteran who needs rest and recovery? And it completely depends on how many minutes are you getting. Are you a stable starter, or are you someone who floats between the second team and the first team? All things that need to be factored in, and no one is on the same plan because every person's situation is different, even if you just look at it positionally. And what is your skill set? Like, is your skill set that you have the ability to do repeated high speed running actions and you have an engine forever, but you're not that explosive? Then how do we optimize your ability to perform and do what we need you to do? And obviously that changes with a player's playing age, exposure age, and even with a lot of players that came up through the MLS, there wasn't performance programs in academies 8 years ago. So a lot of guys that are in the league who are 24 now, they didn't get a performance coach until they probably started working with the first team.
Well,
So
that's what the next question was. Like, do you
their
guys have an
training
academy
age.
now?
Yeah, we do. We've
Uh-huh.
we've had one for a while, but I mean, when I came here, I was the first academy coach that we had for performance, and
Wow.
that was only 4 years ago. So a lot of guys that we have now that are playing at a high level in the league that have only been in the league, likely they don't have they're not their training age isn't that old, so
Yeah.
their potential is
So much higher.
massive. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
That's
all
exciting.
those, yeah, it's really exciting. And then for like the analytics side, I love going into data rabbit holes and just I'll get stuck in there for way too long and come up with something cool that I didn't even think I was going to. For like a finance piece, something I do for us is injury cost analysis. So basically, like a player's
Okay.
salary multiplied by, or sorry, divided by the number of matches you had that year, multiplied by the matches you missed for injury, and then doing an analysis of how much that injury cost us for that player, for all players, so like hamstrings, for instance. Um, how many injuries did we have? How many matches were missed? What was the salary value that was not realized as a result?
Very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the other stakeholders that have much more of a vested interest in the bottom line will be swayed by that type of information,
for sure.
which, yeah, that's fantastic. I wonder how many other teams actually do that. Um, hmm.
But yeah, it's been
So
super valuable for us just in this is your return on investment because
makes
we've seen a
complete sense.
massive decrease in injuries in the last 2 years compared to the prior three. And it's a lot of capital that you are not realizing if you're not putting the right things in place, investing in technologies, having a system and process, investing in human capital to make sure we have world-class practitioners who can do their jobs at a very high level to take care of those players. And then ultimately just people you can collaborate with, actually have a team approach, unified approach, so that you're giving the same information and everyone's on the same page and nothing falls through the cracks, and keeping the team as available as possible to maximize the return on whatever you're putting into the team from a financial perspective.
Top three buckets that you would consider for injury mitigation, reducing especially non-contact injuries? What are the three things that are like a must-have in terms of programming or in the layout that you have?
I think if you look at it from a broad sense, specificity is number one, consistency is number two. And if you are thinking about soccer in particular, like if your most intense action of the week in terms of load is the match, what are the components of the match? So it's an open space. You're gonna have a lot of high speed runs. You're gonna have a lot of sprint actions, max velocity exposure. You're gonna have high intensity change of direction over 90 minutes potentially. So have we built you to be able to do that? And the easiest way to do that is to do that, play. Like you've got to play. So most of our exposure is and stimulus priorities on the pitch. Because if you're not getting that, you're going to have a lot of injuries. So making sure that from a loading perspective, you're hitting minimum thresholds of what a match exposure would bring. So we'll use a 20 match average, rolling average, using the highest three outputs during those 20 matches to build out someone's training week. And then we'll have an undulating loading strategy of deload, normal, overload to make sure that we're peaking when we need to, coming down when we should to make it through a season and not be completely dead at the end.
So
And then in
load
terms
management,
of, yeah, for sure. But it's not even
huge.
management. I think it's load optimization because you're not really telling them they can't do something. You're giving an allowance to live in where it's still intense. It's not, you're not managing load because every session should be intense because the game is intense. So it's not like you're just doing a walkthrough. It's more so if you think about uh, intensity and volume on an X axis or X and Y axis, as intensity goes up, volume should go down. As
Yeah.
volume goes up, intensity needs to come down. So as long as you're living in that world and you're not overexposing with high intensity actions at the wrong time of the week or wrong time of the month, then you're relatively safe in terms of that. Because once you're cooked, you're not coming back in a day. It's going to be a while. Like if you've been overtrained, overstimulated perpetually, and now you're starting to get overuse injuries or your form's starting to drop, like once it's there, you're too late. Like
It better be
it's
match day -3 or something like that, right?
Yeah, so our working days are always match to -4 and match to -3. And the second piece we do is we align supplementary gym programming that is very calculated in meeting or matching the demands of that day in terms of what they're doing on the pitch.
We're just going to take a quick pause from this conversation to acknowledge our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. The Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere with just an iPad or iPhone. No wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. At the forefront of Metabolic Elite is Jim Lavelle, internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, a chief science officer at Lifetime, and the co-chair for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He's got over 4 decades of experience and has guided Olympic athletes, professional teams, and leading health institutions. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. Like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, it's trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, Z-E-L-O-S. Okay, Kyle, try to make some sense for me of this
Okay.
because it's something I keep banging my head against. Remembering through CSCS that there is the SAID principle, specific adaptation to impose demands. And yet I feel like we just kind of quietly shove that off to the side when we go into the weight room and do exercise selection. Like I understand we're trying to build good, solid, fundamental strength and a base. But at the same time, the gym exercises do not look like they would carry over onto the pitch very well because they're not specific in that nature. So then we have to kind of reform this and go, okay, we're going to do a lot more unilateral training, which thank God the last 5 years, everyone's starting to get on the bandwagon going, yeah, unilateral and contralateral will minimize the bilateral loading, but we're still holding on to it because we're having a hard time letting it go. Like, I guess my question to you is, how do you maintain accordance with the said principle or your understanding of it and selecting the proper lifts for your players on the days that
Sure.
they're in the weight room?
It changes based on what phase of the season we're in. Like if we're in a building phase where we have a series of one match weeks and we can actually push load, intensity, and frequency of those types of actions, then it's going to be much more boilerplate and just fundamental because we want them to load and that's what they're comfortable loading with. And there's a degree of safety within that. So if we're going to do progressive overload during that period, and this year we'll have a block of 6 weeks, I think, and it's really the only time because we're doing a different schedule this year. And then looking at the periodization of everything before the break, we have a 6 week block where we have single match weeks. Outside of that, everything's going to be very recovery based with match congestion and those types of things. So in those 6 weeks, we will progressively overload in the gym. And for us, what that looks like is also on the pitch. So it's an extension of preseason essentially. So you're in your building phase during preseason, but as soon as you get to preseason, you have this period where you're introducing a stimulus of competition through soccer, which no one is playing anywhere near as much as they are during that time. So the gym stimulus has to disappear to offset it.
Sure.
And so we'll gradually build that to normal over the first 3 weeks. And then we'll have once we go to like a normal schedule, because usually during preseason we'll have like one off day, 4 day lead in a match, and they're progressively increasing their minutes in the match, so they don't need as much time off. So once you get to a more normal schedule and you can have a weekly periodization that is more like a wave of the week where you're coming up for your 2 working days, dipping for your tactical day on a -2, and then having a primer for your -1, going into your match where they'll get more minutes, 75 to 90 usually for those last 2 games. Now you can have more of a normal loading schedule where your true overload day is on the -3, which is the most intense day on the pitch, because that's usually when you play 11v11. So that's where you're getting your high speed meters, your sprint meters. And then the day prior to that, we use it as more of a primer. So it's more isometric based resiliency work for lower body, very hip oriented. So we'll do Copenhagen's, we'll do reverse Nordic ISOs, we'll do standing calf ISO, we'll do um, what else for that day? Like a loaded plank, something like that. It's just challenging you in all uh, planes of motion to maintain joint position in a neutral position without compensation. So that's
Sure.
very much so pelvic related in terms of your capacity to withstand load and breathe with that there. And on that day, we'll do more of an upper body emphasis. But I think what translates so well for us is having a very high emphasis on contrast training. That's the model we use pretty much exclusively. So every loaded action that's your strength based action is immediately followed by an explosive plyometric through the same movement pattern. So you get that kinetic linking, you get more body awareness, and you're also simultaneously addressing strength and power within that. And then on top of that, we'll also have a pretty robust periodized schedule for plyometrics measured by foot contacts that will
Okay.
also we'll match that stimulus to what we're doing in training as well. So like on a small sided day, it's much more. unilateral, multi-directional 6-inch hurdle type progressions. Um, so we'll do linear, lateral, medial, transverse, a lot of different loading actions, stability, continuous, multi-direction. So maybe it's even into like another sprint action from there, but just kind of having variety so you have that motor learning acts or and more complexity of movement that's highly specific to game situations. And then
Certainly.
that'll be a kind of our vertical plyometric day as well. And because it's on a small sided game day, so tighter spaces, more strength actions, more strength stimulus for kind of always being in a athletic position, a lot of cutting, shuffling, that type of stuff, high intensity X cells, D cells. So we want to match that stimulus to pushing action, which is where we get box jump progressions. And on the -3, where we're going to do our large sided activities, the 11 to 11 on a full pitch, you're going to get a lot of high speed, a lot of sprint actions, especially if it's an inter squad game and it's wide open and there's a lot of transition. So you might get way more than you thought you were, but matching that stimulus to more of like a linear horizontal type action where they're going to have to sprint during the warm up before they go into the match anyways. So using it as a primer and efficiently getting that type of exposure. So like a lot of broad jump progressions, continuous broad jump progressions, single leg hopping and bounding progressions. And on the -2, maybe doing very low level assisted resisted movement pattern based lateral skips, bounds, double bounds, those types of things.
And fantastic response, by the way. That's just so comprehensive. I'm loving it. And I think you pretty much handled where I was going with this too. I mean, I'm thinking about all the traditional lifts that we'll see in programs, and they're very linear. But when
Yeah,
we look at non-contact injuries, whether it's hamstring pull, whether it's well, inversion sprain, ACL, all the
yeah,
common ones, we're going to find that there's torsion and rotation. It's not
for sure.
linear, right? So we're training our athletes to be resilient in a linear loaded pattern. But now
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. You're throwing them into other loaded patterns. Here's the question, I guess, is what I'm wondering is like there's common places where the body should be resilient on the pitch, but we're not training that necessarily in the gym,
Right.
such as driving the knee in a certain direction, allowing for deceleration to occur. Like, so my question, I guess, is this: do you place them in isometric holds in the chaotic state where non-contact injuries are most prevalent?
Yeah, we'll do some like low level plyometrics where you're doing like drops. So like if you're doing from a linear basis, one of the things we chose this year for our strength block of our off-season program was a Rifford elevated split squat where you're starting, it's a 4 week strength block. I think we started at 3 sets of 6 to begin, so it was 18 reps total. Next week we did 4 times 5. Week after that we did 5 times 4. Week after that, we did 6 times 3. So the total volume doesn't change, but the percentage of max does. So 70, 75, 80, 85, because you can move more weight with less reps. The volume didn't change though. So the stimulus increases with the intensity due to increased weight. And then the complexity of the plyometric changes over time. So that's where you get that motor learning ability. So like the first week, we did a drop lunge. So you're starting on 2 feet, drop into a split stance, absorb the force, hold it for 2 seconds, and then come back up and just alternate. So then the next week we did a split jump where they're just in a split stance. They're not changing their feet. So they're just jumping up and down on that
Uh-huh.
foot, but having quick contacts, max height, that type of thing. I think the next week we did a continuous split jump. So now you're switching feet. And then the week after that, we did like I think it was a box jump with box on both sides, so you're landing, rotating, and a lunge.
Got it.
So like
Nice.
a 18-inch box jump and then landing in a lunge position
Sweet. Okay,
with
now I'll
like more rotation as well. So you get that component of controlling your end range, finding stability, that body mind connection, and control of movement through range of motion, and being able to absorb force with alternate or with different external forces.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
that. That's
And then for
exactly where
the
my head
you
was
asked
going.
something earlier about the ability to absorb force and not being able to do that with conventional lifts. And I agree. And that's where contrast training is very robust, is that you can manipulate any movement and it's unweighted, so it's relatively safe. And the athlete feels comfortable to move quickly. And you can add external force like you can do a resisted to assisted. So you're having to work harder on the way out. You get a rapid recoil, which is even greater than what you would ever experience without the band. And then you get more force because you're getting pulled elastically to then stop with a perfect position. So it's more taxing than arguably you would do on a pitch. So exposing them to that while giving them a load through range of motion for depth and just movement quality, efficiency, and you're doing it under load. So you have that strength through range of motion, but then you also have that CNS response whenever
That's the
you're,
key.
yeah, exactly.
That's
So
totally the key.
I think it's a game changer. Like I know a lot of people have different philosophies around contrast training, but it's just what I've always gravitated towards, and everywhere I've gone, it's worked.
No, it lights up the proprioceptors like
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe. And
Well,
that
and
that
players
I
players
think
love
is
it. Yeah.
they do.
They love it, and they can see the results over time. Like it makes lifts super efficient because you can't have a lot of volume, and you don't need a lot of volume.
No.
Yeah,
And which kind of goes into like BFR training. I mean, you don't need a tremendous amount of load to really fatigue the body, and that can be really good, especially when you're halfway through the season or near the end of the season, and fatigue is a huge component. Um,
100%.
so
Yeah,
you were mentioning how you had such a dramatic drop in injuries based on everything that you just laid out. Is that what you'd attribute it to? Are there other components that you haven't mentioned? I'm sure it's
yeah, for
multifaceted,
sure.
but
I mean,
what other things
it's
have come into play that you'll
yeah.
attribute the drop?
I think the more time I spend in this position of working in a first team setting, there's so many things that can go into it. And human beings are so complex, and so are injuries, and so is the stimulus that creates those injuries. Like it could be just a ripple effect and it should have never happened. So I think one thing that I was a little bit naive in was just being so rough on myself in my first year because we had the most injuries I've ever seen anywhere at any level. Like, it was like complete shock and it was horrible. Like, oh man, like waking up with nightmares and just having like a panic attack. Anyone goes down on the sideline. It was rough, man. It was really bad. But we didn't hide from it. We dug in and tried to find a solution, and we did. Like we did. It was that year was the foundation and basis of everything we do now. And we brought in a couple of the pieces that have exponentially helped. Like Felix Prosel's a world-class practitioner in terms of sports science and has really helped us shape those processes at a much higher level than we would have ever imagined. But the foundational pieces were in place after the experience of that season of what is needed to keep a team healthy. And I mean, I can still remember the date of our last hamstring injury, and it was May 24th, 2023,
That was your last one?
in a match.
That's phenomenal.
It's pretty crazy. It's lucky as hell, but it's
Their luck.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Dur
that's
during a
just
match
a
during a
modest
match
way of
though,
saying it.
that was the last time. Aside from one, but it was fatigue based, and he didn't really get a full preseason. It was a lesson in really making sure you understand the details and everything that goes into an injury and what you should be looking at, even if it doesn't pop out of you. Like be curious of every aspect of what you're exposing a player to, because every stimulus has a reaction, and you don't necessarily know how they're going to react unless you have experience with it and you know they're able to do it, or if they're not getting something, what is it and why are we giving it to them?
Yeah, a dam affects everything up and downstream. It's not
For
just
sure.
at the site, right? So we got to understand the whole athlete as an integrated unit, which
Yeah,
at times that's not the easiest thing to do, especially when
for
we,
sure. Yeah. And
isolate
it's
one thing or
it's
another.
it's easy to for something to fall through the cracks too. I mean, that's why processes are so important. That's why having multiple eyes on it are so important, and having a team that you can collaborate with, get feedback from, and really ultimately just be a team with who everyone is very invested in the health of each player. They genuinely care and have devoted themselves to selfless service and want nothing but the best for the player. That's ultimately what gets you out of those types of situations. And while it sucked, we didn't really have another soft tissue injury that year. So it was a tale of two seasons, really. Like we had nothing but injuries to start, and we didn't have any injuries to end. So that was at least the positive of it.
Sure,
It was the
sure.
start of something that was much better.
Right on.
Yeah.
And so, with this expansion of staff, do you have a dedicated sports scientist, or is that still on your shoulders?
No, it's Felix Prosel. He's our director of sport and sorry, the senior director of sport and data science.
And
So
what's the
he
next position that you're going to be taking off your shoulders and creating?
Oh no, I'm right where I want to be. So, um, I was the return to play specialist before I became the director of player performance, and I hired Baker Cronin, who's a fantastic return to play and performance coach specialist. He has next year will be his 10th year in the league, um, and he's worked in a lot of different high performance environments and does a fantastic job, and just brought that process to an even higher level this year. So I think we have a really good team around here, and I feel very fortunate to be in the position I'm in.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I'm quite excited for you and what you got going on. I mean, the turnaround, remarkable in terms of injuries, and it sounds like you've got your thumb on the pulse of quite a few things there. So, if people want to, aside from following Colorado Rapids, I'm about to say Raptors, but Rapids, and but more interested in yourself and what you're doing with the team and off on and off pitch, how can people follow you?
Yeah, it's if you want to reach out, my email is kyle.porter at coloradorapids.com, and then I'll just pull up my
Are you pulling up your Instagram handle because you don't use it
yeah,
so often?
exactly. Let me just find it real quick.
I'll make sure that we get the links in the
Yeah, you
description
can.
below.
It's just Kyle Porter underscore performance.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then LinkedIn,
Man,
I think it's just my name. So just Kyle Porter.
easy enough.
Yeah.
Well, man, you packed in so much in this conversation. I've got to rewind and listen through a few times so I make sure I got everything. But I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing what you guys are doing in Colorado, and wish you well for the 2026 season, which is going to be here before you know it. I mean, February is right around the
Yeah.
corner.
The off season's blown by and we're eager to get back at it.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. I really enjoyed this, and reach out if you have any other questions.
I certainly will.
Man, that was a packed conversation. I definitely am going to rewind on a few of those. Kyle, can't thank you enough for coming on, as well as appreciation toward the Colorado Rapids for making this happen. You guys, just one more time, want to listen to my sponsors, and if you haven't checked them out, really do yourself a favor. They are fantastic. We'll see you next week.
Remember to check out metabolicelite.co. Check out all the products they have on their website. Synapsin Pro is something I've been using to help stay focused without having to over-caffeinate myself. It keeps me in the zone so I can just really hone in on the things I need to achieve without feeling like, man, I gotta reach for an energy drink every 5 minutes. Metabolicelite.co. And don't forget, Kinetic IQ. They've got markerless motion capture for morons like me. I can use their product with my iPhone or my iPad. I can look at posture analysis, movement analysis of any exercise, gait analysis. It gives me everything I could possibly want when tracking people's movements. So, check out kineticiq.com.